your property taxes are going up again next year with or without Proposition HH. If Prop HH passes, the increase will just not be as much. But in return, Colorado taxpayers will have to give up some and perhaps all of their Tabor refunds in the future. That's because you will be giving the state permission to keep and spend more money than is currently allowed. If Prop HH fails, your property tax will go up without a discount. That is, unless lawmakers come up with another solution. This ballot issue is complicated. It involves property taxes, Tabor refunds, growing the state's budget, and the bottom line for cities, counties, school districts, fire districts, libraries, any district that receives money from your property taxes. So grab your ballot and some popcorn as 9 News and the Denver Gazette debate Prop HH. Good evening, I'm Marshall Zellinger. We do not have popcorn in the studio. This is an issues debate. Unlike our usual candidates debate, you're not voting for the people here, but rather the ballot issue they want you to pass or fail. Representing the yes on HH side, Democratic Governor Jared Polis. He is in the middle of his second term. With him on the yes side is Arthur Laffer, a conservative and founder of his own economic research and consulting firm. He served on President Reagan's Economic Policy Advisory Board. Representing the no on HH side, we have State Representative Rose Pugliese from Colorado Springs, seated next to the governor. As Assistant Minority Leader, she is the highest-ranking female for the House Republicans. And also on the no side, Michael Fields of the conservative group Advanced Colorado Institute. He leads one of the no on HH campaign committees. Thank you, the 4 of you, for being here for this. There will be no timer tonight, except for the 1-minute opening statements and 1-minute closing statements. Please try to keep it as close to the minute as you can. I ask that you keep all of your answers as close to 1 minute as possible. If I feel like it starts to go long, your timer is going to be me starting to raise my hand like this. That will be your cue to wrap it up. This is a conversation and a debate. Please engage each other as you see fit. And as we've come to love with our debates, you'll have the opportunity to ask the other side at least one question tonight. Tonight's questions were prepared by 9 News and the Denver Gazette and have not been shared with anyone else in advance. Before we get to the opening statements by one representative from each side, here is a quick primer on Proposition HH. A yes vote on Proposition HH does so many things, but let's be clear what it does not do. It does not lower your property tax bill to a dollar amount less than what you paid this past year. A yes vote creates a discount on your property tax increase for 10 years. Next year, your property tax bill will still go up, just not as much if Prop HH passes. The higher the value of your property, the more money you will save. A yes vote allows seniors to take the senior property tax exemption with them to new homes. Those who are 65 and older and have lived in their home for 10 or more years get a portion of their home's assessed value tax-free, and Prop HH makes the discount portable to new homes. A yes vote allows the state to keep and spend more each year than is currently allowed. That money would normally be refunded back to you as a Tabor refund. With the exception of next year, a yes vote reduces your future Tabor refunds and could eliminate them in some years depending on future unknown economic factors. More on what a yes vote means for next year's Tabor refund in a moment. The extra money that a yes vote allows the state to keep and spend would go to 3 areas. Some would go to local governments, since they would be receiving fewer property tax dollars than if HH failed. Up to $20 million each year would go to a rental assistance fund. And the bulk of the money would go to school districts to pay them back entirely for the lost property tax revenue that would have existed if Prop HH failed. And money beyond that would go to the state education fund. A yes vote puts a limit on how much some local governments can collect in property tax revenue each year, unless those local governments hold a public meeting and vote to keep more than would be allowed. Now let's go back to the Tabor refunds part. Only if you vote yes will Tabor refunds next year be equal, no matter your income level. That means if you make up to $99,000, you will get a larger Tabor refund. If you make more than $99,000, your Tabor refund will be smaller. In future years, everyone's Tabor refund would be reduced overall, with higher income earners seeing more dollars taken away. A no vote makes no changes to the current property tax structure. A no vote does not allow the state to keep and spend more money than is currently allowed. A no vote would distribute next year's Tabor refund based on your income level. Fewer dollars for low-income earners, much more Tabor refund dollars for high-income earners. All right, thanks for joining us. We'll see you later. Oh, just kidding. Let's get started with our 1-minute opening statements. A coin toss to determine who would go first. One person from each side. We'll begin with Mr. Fields on the no on HH side.
Thanks, Marshall. Prop HH is a bad deal for Coloradans. We all know what the problem is. Property taxes are about to skyrocket. And instead of simply cutting the rates, the governor and the General Assembly decided to use this crisis as an opportunity to go after our Tabor tax refunds. Prop HH is intentionally misleading voters. It would greenlight the largest property tax increase in Colorado history, and it would also take away $10 billion in Tabor refunds over the next 10 years. And that would be a blank check to politicians. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board had it right when it called Prop HH a backdoor tax hike. Tonight, the governor's going to try to manipulate a bunch of numbers to try to convince you that you'll be saving money under Prop HH. But that's not true. You'll pay 30% more in property taxes, and you'll eventually lose your Tabor tax refunds forever. The solution is simple. Call a special session and cut the rates without touching Tabor. Tonight, the governor should commit to doing that if Prop HH fails.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. And on the yes side, Governor Polis will give the opening statement.
Well, thank you. I think we agree with my panelists on the problem, if you will, which is in many ways a victim of our own success. Housing prices have gone up a lot, and we have an agenda on saving people money, on allowing more homes to be built that will address that over time. But in the meantime, the immediate crisis is people face, without HH passing, a 40% increase on their property tax bills. HH solves that in several ways. First of all, it significantly reduces property taxes. We'll be debating tonight. Do average homeowners save $300, $500, $600, $800? Obviously depends on the price of your home, but everybody saves a lot. It will, I believe, also contain the growth of property taxes over time. You mentioned in your summary the cap, the truth in taxation cap. That helped move Utah from the 36th highest property tax state to the 14th lowest. By implementing their policy here in Colorado, it'll prevent us from ever again having this kind of huge hike that people face. I think it's better not to tax money from people in the first place rather than over-collect and refund it via Tabor. It's better to simply cut taxes on the outset. This cuts the rates and saves people money.
All right. Now let's get to some of the questions. We're going to start with the governor. Mr. Fields, you mentioned in your open intentionally misleading and manipulating. So let's talk about truthfulness. Governor Polis, a prominent quote of yours in Yes on HH advertising changed over the weekend after we truth tested it for being false. And I want to show it on the screen. You can see it here on the left. The quote was, Prop HH is the only way we prevent devastating tax increases while still preserving Tabor refunds. The new quote on the right changes one word. Prop HH is the best way to prevent devastating tax increases while still preserving Tabor refunds. You now admit that voting yes on HH is not the only way, but you still falsely say it preserves Tabor refunds when they will shrink and perhaps go away. The question is, why deceive people about Prop HH if you think it's such a good idea?
Well, I think it's the best way by far. This is $13 billion of property tax cuts over 10 years. Now, they'll argue it's only $9 billion. We can talk about why our numbers are correct and theirs aren't, but let's say it's between $9 and $13 billion in tax cuts. When you estimate what it'll do to Tabor refunds, it'll reduce it by $2 to $3 billion. Again, they will argue it's 9, that it's somehow a wash, but that is not based on any historical data. Our analysis is simply based on the last 10 years of how the economy worked. If you run the 10 years before that, it's pretty similar. Yes, this will, over 10 years, reduce Tabor surpluses by $2–3 billion. The size of the tax cut is about $13 billion. The reason their figure is lower, they don't include the commercial tax cut, and they don't include the truth in taxation mechanisms for cap for keeping tax rates low. We simply take the data that occurred from Utah, which has the same policy, apply it here. Savings are $13 billion.
But I want to focus on the term. You had only, now it's best. So you were saying this was the only thing, and that wasn't true. And the preserving. Tabor refunds could go away in those 10 years where if HH didn't exist, I might get a Tabor refund, and if HH exists, I might not.
There will always be years with Tabor refunds and always years with no Tabor refunds. That's always been the case in the past. I think it's 5 of the last 10 years have had Tabor refunds, 5 of them haven't. The good thing about a tax cut is it occurs every year. Even in a recession, when there's no Tabor surplus, you will get this tax cut. And that's the beauty and importance of this. People need the money even more when times are tough. And those are the years that don't have surpluses, where there's no refund to go out. You still get that tax cut. That's the main reason that this $9 billion and $3 billion figure are different. The projections they're using are these, I think, somewhat fictitious ones, that somehow there would be Tabor surpluses every year. It's never been the case. I would be willing to bet it's not going to be the case. It's just not the case that there's never any kind of setback or slow growth or recession. When there is, People, of course, don't give up a dime in surplus because there wouldn't be one, but they still get the full benefit of the tax cut, which is why the tax cut is worth so much more over the 10-year period.
Mr. Fields, you're shaking your head, but first, I want to get to some of the truthfulness on your side of the campaign. You, as one of the No on HH political campaigns, are also making false statements. This one's going to take a while, but looking at the screen here, we're going to show you yours. This is going to be a political mailer that your group paid for, signed by Republican State Representative Lisa Frizzell. Bullet point 1, Prop HH eliminates Tabor tax refunds forever. That's not true. They can still exist. Bullet point 2, Prop HH is not property tax relief. That's not accurate. While you're right that it does not lower property taxes, it discounts future property tax increases. So let's stop here for a moment on that flyer. Why mislead about this on your side?
Sure, I don't think it's misleading at all. If you look at just the Blue Book by itself, it says that there's going to be $10 billion of Tabor refunds over the next 10 years. You can open up your Blue Book, look at the chart. It shows how much money is going to be there. Over time, it will end Tabor tax refunds. If you look at just the historical number, how much average growth you have per year, if it's at 4.2%, which it's been for the last 20 years, then it will end Tabor refunds eventually. That 1% every year adds up and adds up. You lose more and more of your Tabor refunds. So I think it's absolutely true to say that it'll end Tabor refunds. In terms of property tax relief, you can fudge all the numbers and work them around. But when it comes down to it, next year, I'm going to be paying 34% more in property taxes if HH passes, and then I lose $5,000 in Tabor refunds over 10 years. So I don't know how you can call a cut something where I'm going to be paying 34% more, and every Coloradan is going to be paying at least 30% more next year. That is a tax increase, and you're taking away Tabor refunds.
I'm clear to say that this is a discount on your increase. You're going to pay more, just not as much. But you say property is not property tax relief, and that part's not accurate.
I just don't agree, given the fact that they have the opportunity to call a special session or in session to say, you know what, we're going to make sure that we're going to have a reasonable increase, right? This could be whatever number they come up with, 30, 40%, taxing people out of their homes. Think about what this means for seniors, for people on fixed income, families that are trying to make ends meet. They're going to see next year a huge tax bill, even if HH passes, and then they lose their Tabor refunds on top of that.
This is the last visual aid, and it's still from that same mailer. So let's bring it up one more time with the bullet point 3 and 4. Bullet point 3, Prop HH will lead to seniors being driven from their homes. No, property tax bills are going to, as you said, property tax bills are going to go up with or without HH. And with HH, a senior can take a significant property tax discount with them to a new home. Why are you trying to scare voters 65 and older? And I want to point out also on the 4th bullet point, you call it a blank check, unaccountable with no strings attached. The money can be tracked, and it's specified where it can go. So let's talk about, first, why are you trying to scare seniors, and why do you say it's not accountable money?
Sure, this is absolutely, what's going on in Colorado for property taxes is absolutely scary to seniors because most of them are trying to stay in their homes, right? These are people who have lived in their homes a long time. The value's gone up a lot. The governor supported a repeal of Gallagher Amendment. They said there would be a replacement for that. That replacement has not come, so they're gonna see this 30, 40% increase. I got a letter from an 80-year-old grandpa, sent $15 for the No on HH campaign, and he said, I can't afford to lose my Tabor refund. I can't afford to have this higher property tax. They knew this was coming. They had all session to deal with it, to make it something reasonable. They didn't do this. So green lighting, the largest property tax increase in Colorado history, is on the legislature, is on the governor.
Let me just add that AARP supports this initiative because this will help keep seniors in their home, as well as not do a tax penalty for seniors who choose to sell their home and move to another home. It allows them to take that tax advantage with them, and it'll save them. Look, property taxes, average home went up 40%. Social Security income didn't go up 40%. This will help reduce the property taxes, reduce the rate of increase on property taxes so the seniors can stay where they live if they choose.
I promise, Dr. Laffer, Representative Pugliese, we will get to it in a moment.
I'm loving it.
One last thing, I want to point out, the 5th bullet point, by the way, Mr. Fields, that was accurate because it's something we talked about with the Governor Polis. Prop HH is not the only solution. That was the accurate part of the mailer.
Well, can I just also add the fungibility of money, the blank check part? I think that's absolutely true. Once you approve this money, the legislature can do whatever they want with it afterwards. So they're saying it's going to go to education or it's going to go to backfill. They can change that at any point once you approve it. So I want people to be aware. If you really trust state government to spend your money wisely, okay, then go ahead and think that. But this is a blank check to them, and the money goes to state government.
I do want to point out, state statute can be changed by legislatures. Constitutional amendments are in the Constitution that would require voter approval.
Well, as a fiscal matter, any money goes to the state education fund. That's this is brought to the ballot under Tabor. It's consistent with Tabor. Only Tabor initiatives can be brought in odd years. I was just going to briefly add that I was proud to support and join with Michael Fields in supporting Proposition 121. This cut the state income tax in Colorado and decreased Tabor refunds, along with the other income tax cut by about $150 a year. I think we absolutely should cut taxes. And of course, when you do cut taxes, naturally, it reduces the surplus. That goes hand in hand. Now, it happens less than everyone thinks because of something called dynamic growth. When you cut taxes, guess what? It's $1 billion in property tax relief that this provides. What people do and what businesses do with that money that they have that would have been taken by the government, they reinvest and it grows. And so the actual cost is much less over time because it leads to additional growth.
Isn't there a name for that sort of feedback effect, Jared?
But I want to point out, the governor wants to take credit for the income tax cut, but that was a citizens' initiative, right? He came out and supported it, but he didn't put any.
No, I share credit with you.
No,
I said you.
None of his groups put money behind it. He didn't debate
I don't have
it.
groups.
He didn't go. He didn't go and go to the legislature like Bill Owens did when he cut taxes and said cut this tax.
No, wait, Michael, I did.
Citizens
In all 5 of my State of the State addresses, I've called for cutting the income tax. Rose remembers the last one I did. They haven't done it once. I'm glad that you brought that before the people. It passed with 65% of the vote. Majority of Democrats, Republicans, Independents all supported it. Proud to support it. We should cut the income tax more. And I'm sure I'm going to mention that in the State of the State again. But yes, it takes the people to do it. And that's why I have confidence in the people to cut property taxes. I don't trust, they say throw it to the legislature, with no offense, but I don't always trust the politicians. I trust the people. The people are the ones who are going to help cut property taxes.
HH is literally a ballot measure that politicians put on to take Tabor refunds.
But you're saying trust the politicians to cut taxes.
Let's involve some of the others here on stage. Representative Pugliese, we've talked about whether or not how much this saves or how much you're going to pay more in the end. Even with property taxes rising next year, Colorado will still be a relatively low property tax state. So why shouldn't Colorado collect more in taxes and provide more services to its citizens like other states do?
Well, I think this is kind of a multifaceted question. First, I'm a single mom. I've got 2 kids that I raise by myself, and I have 3 jobs. And when I'm crisscrossing the state, talking to people from across the state as to what their needs are, they are struggling under high inflation. Everything costs more. Gas costs more. Housing costs more. Groceries cost more. They can't afford anymore. And now their property taxes are skyrocketing. They're not prepared for it. We also have fees on top of our taxes, which also is something that people have to pay. And what they're saying is stop. Just stop taxing us to death. And so, and I don't believe after this property tax hike that we will be a low tax state. I think we were before, but I don't think we are anymore.
I struggle with property tax hike. And I've even heard the governor struggle with how because it's a rising property tax bill that is reduced in a way. Help me understand the blanket term property tax hike when I would be paying a smaller bill than I would otherwise.
But you're paying more in property tax regardless, right? So there is a property tax hike. And I don't know, I heard the governor say there's significant tax savings, property tax savings. I will say when I did the calculator, it was not a significant property tax savings. And I think when I talk to people on the street and people door to door, they don't think it's a significant property tax savings at all. And remember, it's just a decrease on the increase. Your property taxes are still going up regardless.
Let me just clarify. So it's not that the rate went up, the values of people's homes went up. That's the issue that we're facing. The value of homes went up, and therefore people have to pay more, and we're trying to provide some relief. Reduce the taxable amount of your home value by $50,000 and cut the rate.
Some relief.
If I could just respond for a second. In fairness, Governor, we could have, the legislature, along with the governor, could have cut your property tax state assessment rate in April. We did not need to go to the ballot. We did not have to take a property tax crisis and use it to take your Tabor refunds. Tabor has nothing to do with the property tax issue. And we should have addressed it in April as good leaders, but we didn't, and instead brought you HH.
We will get more into the legislative effort in a moment. Let's bring in Dr. Laffer. When looking at who personally benefits from Proposition HH, it depends on how much your property is valued and how much you make in income. The more your property is valued, the more money you'll save on your next increase. The less income you make, the more you will benefit from the Tabor refund change. So, Dr. Laffer, about 1/3 of Coloradans rent. They would lose some of their Tabor refund and would not benefit from a cut in property taxes. What's the argument for a renter to support Prop HH, especially if they're not low income and would get fewer dollars, particularly in the first year when Tabor refunds become the same dollar amount for all income levels?
Can I just clarify the language for a second? Taxes versus tax rates. What Tabor does not do is cut property tax rates. HH would cut property tax rates. So if the valuation's higher, you'll still get a lower percentage on that. And I think that solves the problems here in the discussions. But number two, with lower property tax rates, those benefits will automatically be passed on to renters. Renters will have lower rent because of the property tax rate reduction. I've studied property taxes all across the country. I was very involved with Proposition 13 in California and Connecticut, all over. Renters benefit very definitely from property tax rate reductions. They really do. Homeowners benefit from property tax rate reductions. And Tabor has nothing to do with tax rates. What it has to do is how are you allowed to rebate the funds to the citizens of Colorado. And most of the legislature knows that ahead of time, so they should try to reduce the amount of Tabor benefits there because they can give tax credits and tax exemptions and omissions, et cetera, all of that, which reduces the amount of money that comes through Tabor. And that's just here. Tabor is not a taxpayer's bill of rights. It really is not. It doesn't cut tax rates at all.
I hesitate to do this with an economist,
Please.
but I'm going to make up some numbers here.
Let's make up some numbers.
Let's say my property tax as a landlord, the property tax for my property is $1,000 without HH. Let's say it's $1,500. With HH, it's $1,250. You're telling me that that landlord is going to lower that renter's rent the next year?
It's the same question you asked earlier, and that's not the correct question. It's lowered it from what you would otherwise pay because the taxes would be higher on the property, and they'd have to charge more in rent. With a lower property tax rate, that increase in the rent will be less. The renters will be benefited by the tax rate reduction from what otherwise would be if they didn't have the tax rate reduction. Pure and simple.
So the benefit to the renter is you're going to get increased in your rent.
Well, that's
it's just
history.
not going to be as much.
Yeah, well, that's history. Yes, of course that's true. And, that's been true for 1,000 years. The thing is, tax rate reductions in HH will benefit renters, pure and simple. It'll benefit homeowners, and it will go back to taxpayers, not to some sort of slush fund that is distributed in bonuses by Tabor.
Mr. Fields, make it quick because I'm going to stay on your side with the next question.
Okay, but I mean, this is the problem with the renters talk or property tax relief is people next year are going to see a huge increase in their rent because their landlord's property taxes went up. They're going to see a huge increase in their property tax bill, and they're going to be like, the governor and Dr. Laffer told me that it was a tax cut.
No,
it doesn't make any sense. Dr. Laffer said simplicity is the key to good tax policy. Well, this is a 48-page bill when they could have dealt with this problem with 2 sentences. Cut the rates, right? Don't have a 48-page bill.
This does cut the rates.
No,
it cuts it very simply. That's one of the things it does.
6.76 to 6.7% is barely a cut.
That's just the first year because we already did a temporary cut the first year. But for the rest of the decade, it's a huge
tax
cut.
increase.
No,
Absolutely.
it's
$500-$600 a year.
Tax increase will occur anyway. I mean, come on. Property values have gone up. We all know that.
Now we're just wordsmithing when we really want to get into the details. State Representative Pugliese, when state lawmakers voted on the bill that put Proposition HH on the ballot, you and other House Republicans walked out of the chamber. You didn't vote no. You were just not present when the vote took place. Had you stayed, it still would have passed with the same number of votes, and it would still be on the ballot. If you think this is such a bad idea, why not be on the record saying no?
Here's the problem with what happened that day. Republicans had ideas. We had amendments. That bill came to us late in the day. We waited all day to get that bill. And then we were told we were not allowed to speak. We were not allowed to bring forward ideas that would make the bill better or represent our constituents. I mean, Republicans in the House represent just about 1 million people statewide, and their voices were being silenced. We were told we were not allowed to speak. So it doesn't matter what we did at that point. Walking out was as much of a protest of our lack of a voice in this conversation as sitting there and voting no. We voted no with our actions. And I think that those actions speak very firmly because we represent 1 million people. And those people wanted to have their voices represented, and they weren't.
Let's talk about the direct impact on Tabor refunds. Governor Polis, if Prop HH passes, Colorado taxpayers will receive equal Tabor refunds next year. If Prop HH fails, the more you make, the more you'll get refunded. The less you make, the less you'll be refunded. 62% of taxpayers will get more Tabor refund money next year, but only if Prop HH passes. Why are you using the prospect of redistributing other people's Tabor refunds to incentivize their yes vote?
So all of Tabor is a redistribution of taxes that are above what they should be. Tabor is an indicator that our tax rate is too high. We need to cut the tax rate. Income tax, property tax. Working with Michael Fields, we cut the income tax rate. It reduced everybody's Tabor refund by $150. It passed with 65%. This is even bigger. This is a $13 billion tax cut over 10 years. And yes, of course, with lower tax rates, the Tabor surplus will be less. I'm not a fan of either of those Tabor refund mechanisms, whether it's the 1 tier, the 6 tier. They all are just equally bad economically. I'm in favor of cutting taxes so that we don't have this surplus in the first place.
Well, if you don't like it, let's talk about some question I asked 6 months ago that I still don't have a good answer on. You could have made equal Tabor refunds without Proposition HH. Why did you not just make Tabor refunds equal and still have Proposition HH without this dangling over 62% of the taxpayers?
So, well, it's not a policy I personally am for, would be one reason. Obviously, the legislature works its will, and many of them wanted to do this one-year thing. What I've always held out there is if you do a permanent income tax cut, I would be happy to agree with the legislative proposal to go to 1 tier, but I would hold out to get some kind of reduction in the income tax rate. Would I be open to a reduction in the property tax rate above and beyond what HH provides? Of course I would too. But you have to do something on that front if you want to go to, everybody gets the same for the redistribution of excess taxation.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I just think, the answer to your question is because these are political games that are being played, right? Last year, they sent out a check to everybody, the Colorado cashback check, right? $750
I think it's a Tabor
person.
refund check.
Yeah, well, when you got the letter in the mail from the governor, I was like, maybe it's coming out of his own pocket, but it wasn't. It was Tabor refunds. And you look at that and say, that was politically expedient last year. Now this year it is, we're going to do it flat for 1 year, right? This isn't permanent. They didn't decide to do it permanent. I think ultimately this is discussions that try to get votes, but also are a distraction from the fact that you're going to lose more and more of your Tabor refunds every year.
The truth is, Marshall, this booming Polis economy is producing record surpluses. We've never had this kind of surplus in Colorado history. So rather than keep redistributing more and more money, let's just cut taxes. Let's cut property taxes. Let's cut income taxes.
Right,
We need some pro-growth policy in our state.
That's the
I
right
just think
way
that's
to go.
out of touch, given the fact that what cost of living is like in Colorado, what housing costs are. Now we have a gas tax on top of this, Uber,
Can I ask?
delivery fees, the cost of crime in Colorado. We have all these things going on, and
Those are other issues. Happy to talk
Dr.
about
Laffer
them.
asked politely.
Would you like an income tax rate cut permanent? Will you support the governor on that? Would you like a property tax rate reduction?
We've ran them.
Well,
The
then why
governor
don't
didn't
you
run them, we
guys
ran
get
them.
together and really do the job? This is a property tax rate reduction that helps renters, it helps zone owners. It's much better than the Tabor refund bit, which doesn't return the money back to the taxpayers. It doesn't. And this is much better. Get together and do your tax rate reductions.
Here, Marshall,
Here's the
problem with here's the problem with the Tabor surplus concept. And Michael alluded to this with the cashback and everything. This is something that the legislature and governors decide how to spend, the Tabor surplus.
Right.
It is government money. Once it's taxed and it's given to the legislature, whether they do a tax credit for flying squirrels or whether they send people with red hair $1,000, it already is distortive to the economy. But any tax reduction on and by the way,
but the point is that it should go back to the people.
Prop HH, and that's Prop HH cuts the rate.
It goes back to the people.
They're saying we're going to allow.
We can't hear everybody when you talk.
We're going to
over
allow
each other.
property taxes to go up a lot, and then we're going to take your Tabor refund. The Tabor refunds need to go back to the people, whether it comes in a check, whether it comes in an income tax.
It's
cut.
better to do by cutting taxes.
It's not equal right.
I want
Please,
to bring
if I
this.
may.
I've heard income tax rate multiple times. This has nothing to do with
Right.
Prop
No,
HH.
this is about property
I
tax
just want to
rates.
ask, and let's get in and out of this real fast.
Yeah.
If you want to lower the income tax rate,
I do.
that means the state government would get less.
No, it does not.
Because it just cuts the surplus.
No, it doesn't.
I don't want to cut school funding or anything like that. Like this, that's why I supported this one. We cut the Tabor surplus. Thanks to Michael Fields, you're getting $150 less
It
back
all
on your
revolves
Tabor
around
refund
Tabor
check.
money. So if
That's
you're going to
but
use the
reduce our
Tabor
tax.
money in this,
Right. Same deal. I'm for property tax cuts too. I mean, property tax cuts, income tax cuts, I'm for both.
Yes.
But when the Tabor money runs out, what are you planning on backfilling with? And again, this goes beyond Prop HH. So just like 15 seconds.
I want to cut down to where we no longer have a surplus, so we don't tax it for people in the surplus
That's
base.
right.
I'm not talking about cutting school budgets. I'm against that. Prop HH holds our schools harmless. Doesn't cut $1 from the school budget
What I just heard is I want to do away with Tabor refunds indefinitely.
by cutting taxes.
By cutting tax rates and getting it done so you're, collecting the money first and foremost and then making it reparations to the people by giving them checks backwards is the wrong way to go. Tabor should lower tax rates so the money is not collected in the first place and the people get to keep it and create jobs. That's why property tax rates need to be reduced, Marshall.
Okay, so
honestly,
why isn't that the question on the ballot?
Right.
Can we keep Tabor refunds, period? By itself, its own question, let's do away with Tabor. Why isn't that the question voters are posed with?
Well, we want a property tax cut. We're able to use, because the Polis economy is booming, we have record surpluses, we can deliver a tax cut without hurting funding for our schools or any of the fire districts or things that we need. So this is a way that people can have their cake and eat it too. $13 billion in tax savings, $2 billion in reduced Tabor surpluses. Doesn't entirely do away with Tabor surplus. You'll be getting Tabor surplus checks with the strong economy. But the key thing is the value of the tax cut is worth a lot more over 10 years than the Tabor surplus.
Real quick, Representative Pugliese.
The legislature and the governor, I cannot reemphasize this enough, could have cut your property taxes. They could have lowered the assessment rate in April. Without a vote of the people, we could have done that. And they chose not to. Tabor has nothing to do with property tax relief. We did not need to marry the two. But this is using a property tax crisis in order to take your Tabor refunds.
Dr. Laffer, when state spending is limited, and overages are refunded back to the people like a Tabor refund, doesn't that inject money into the economy?
Absolutely not. It is not returned to the people who paid it. And you know what you do with taxes, with high taxes, people try to earn less, they try to shelter their income, they try to change the location of their income, and they try to pay less in taxes. When the legislature gets a Tabor type of situation, they rejigger all the spending so that the spending comes in credits, in deductions, exemptions, exclusions, omissions, so that the surplus is not there. It does the very opposite of what a tax rate reduction does, which leads to greater prosperity. The reason you're such a successful state right now is you have very low property tax rates and you have very close control of your taxes and your prosperity. This will add fuel and growth to the state, period, and it will not lead to bigger deficits or lower surpluses. I know you believe that, but creation of the jobs, your surplus is because you have low taxes, not in spite of the fact you have low taxes.
I noticed you said your state in
I'm not from Colorado, I'm from Tennessee, the lowest tax state in the nation that has a bigger surplus than you do, and we have low property tax, we have no income tax, we have no unearned income tax, we have very low taxes in every way. We're the lowest tax state and we're the most positive state. I'm trying to get you guys to understand that lesson so you too can share in the prosperity. You have a lot of it right now, and you're getting better and better every day, and this would make it even better to lower your property tax rates.
I see the Colorado flag over your shoulder on that shot.
Yeah, I love Colorado, by the way.
You've known the Polis family for years, and you're on the board of the Polis family business. How is a voter supposed to know if you're a conservative who really thinks Prop HH is a good idea, or a Polis family friend who happens to be a conservative who's doing his friend a favor being here?
Great. I'm glad you asked me that because I've been in favor of tax rate reductions from Reagan on. I have worked on these tax cuts, low rate, broad-based flat tax. I did Jerry Brown's flat tax when he ran for president. I've done tax cuts all the way, and I know tax cuts better than anything. If you read my latest book, Taxes Have Consequences, you can see exactly my whole philosophy and view, and this fits exactly the model I have. Now, I do know the Polis family very, very well. I love them dearly. I am on some of their boards. I know Jared was an intern in my office when he was 13. He's the greatest guy in the world. I think he's the best single governor in the United States, my view, but I am a Republican, and I'm a tax-cutting Republican who completely agrees with his tax rate reduction policies, both on income taxes and on property. You don't have to put this always in Democrat, Republican. Sometimes good policies are just plain good policies.
Despite our friendship, if I was trying to hike the income tax...
I would never come here.
You'd come here against it.
I'd come here to have dinner with you, but not to watch you do tax increases, Jared. I wouldn't.
Are you getting paid for your support
of Prop
HH? Of course not.
I paid for my own way out here. I am staying at the governor's mansion tonight. That's true. But I am staying there, but I paid my way personally, and I'm paying my way back, and I get no money whatsoever for doing this. It's out of my pocket to help people in Colorado share the prosperity that we in Tennessee have, and knowing full well that property tax rate reductions are the best way. There are only two taxes worse: death taxes, in my view, and wealth taxes. Property taxes are a wealth tax and should be reduced and ultimately, I believe, eliminated.
Let's take a moment to be able to ask a question to the other side, one question from the yes side to the no side, one question from the no side to the yes side. I don't want to pick for it. Have you guys picked out who might ask the first question? So Representative Pugliese from the no side, what's your question to the yes side, and who are you asking it to?
Okay. Governor, Republicans have called for a special session since session ended. Are you willing to, you said yourself that Proposition HH is not the only way. Would you be willing to call a special session so that we can, in a very bipartisan way, because I agree with Mr. Laffer that this is not a partisan issue and should not have been done behind closed doors. If you can get the right people to the table, which I believe we can, would you call a special session so that we can fix this problem?
So, well, look, whether it's in January or whether it's in November or December, and whether Prop HH passes or not, I'm all for you guys doing more property tax relief, to be clear. I'm all for you guys cutting the income tax. I don't think you're going to see anything close to this size of a $13 billion property tax cut over 10 years that also has the truth of taxation cap on growth of property taxes. I'm a wild-eyed optimist, as you know, Marshall. If there's a drop of water in the cup, I say it's half full. But on this, I just say there's absolutely no way that I could see you guys doing a $13 billion tax cut package. And I trust the people to pass HH, and hopefully you'll be able to build on that next legislative session.
Yes.
I'll add to this. The special session probably wouldn't revolve around what the Republicans want, since the Democrats are in charge. So you can say you don't trust what they'll do, but if you called a special session, it would be the Democrats. So do you trust what Democrats might do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, since Republicans don't have to govern, they can say what they want here, but the minute their special districts and their counties are saying, you're cutting our budget, I don't know how much of a backbone they have either. One of the things that HH does is it holds schools harmless. How much of a backbone do Republicans really want to cut the school budgets? I don't know. But yes, we deal with who we have in the legislature. Of course, I've only had a Democratic majority. I haven't had a Republican majority. Would they be any better? I have no idea. But I do know that we're in a better spot if we pass HH and try to build upon that with additional tax relief.
Last word by Representative Pugliese.
I take issue with the fact that local governments are being brought in like they're getting some sort of break here. So the state gets $0 from property tax. It's your local governments, your school districts, your special districts, your local county governments, where I used to be a county commissioner. I'm the only one who's actually allocated property taxes and had to build a budget around it. And what I want to say is, not only were they not at the table in this backroom deal, when they're the ones who actually rely on property taxes to provide essential services, but they care about their constituents too. When I talk to other county commissioners from across the state, what they're saying is, our people cannot afford more roads. You need to bring other solutions to the table. So it's not just about their budgets, they care about their people too.
Governor, Dr. Laffer, who's going to ask the question to the no side?
I could do that. I mean, so look, we were able to pass 121. We cut the income tax. That reduced the Tabor surplus by about $150 per person. This is an even bigger tax cut. Do tax cuts reduce the Tabor surplus? Of course they do, because they reduce the revenue. So why was that one okay and this one's not? Do you like cutting income taxes but not property taxes?
Yeah, so I think the answer to that is simply you have to look at the history of what went on, right? We used to have the Gallagher Amendment. It kept residential property taxes very low in our state. The governor, the legislature came in and said, we're going to freeze the rates, your property taxes won't go up, right? And then we end up in this circumstance, we have 30 or 40% increases. They promised that they would come up with a solution to keep residential property taxes low. That did not happen. And therefore, this is why we're in the position we are, is this isn't really a cut. This is lowering the huge increase that we're going to see when they still have that promise from 2020 to actually fix this problem. There has been no cap. There has been no major drop to it, which is why people are about to see a 30 or 40% increase. So these are totally different scenarios. This is slightly lowering this and say, thank us, when we're still going to see a 30 or 40% higher bill next year. When people get their bill in the mail, it'll be 30 or 40% higher.
Would you rather see it 40 or 50% higher?
No,
I mean, what are you asking?
I would rather see it as a reasonable number, right?
Well,
this has to be single digit.
But that's a separate issue. Tax rate
no, it's
reduction.
not, because they have the power to do it.
No.
They can go in, call a special session, and say, we're only going to go up 10%.
And so therefore you're going to vote down HH because they don't do a special session. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
You throw it there. You always, you never should let the best be the enemy of the good.
I didn't oppose
it is a property tax.
I didn't oppose the income tax cut because it wasn't enough. Now, you wrote it. I could blame you and said you should have made it 0.2, 0.25. You made it 0.13% cut. but I still supported it. Would I have loved if you made a point too? I would have loved it, but you didn't. So look, is it enough? Can we do more? HH is a strong start. $13 billion of tax cuts is not a rounding error. This will lead to greater economic productivity in our state.
Go look at the Common Sense Institute study. It shows this is a tax increase. You look at till 2040, it's a $21 billion more that the government can keep. This is growing government. It's not shrinking government. You have to look at the numbers. The governor wants you to look at the first 2 years and say, this is what's going to happen. They don't want you to look at the 30% increase. They don't want you to look at the TABOR refunds you're going to be giving up. This is a tax increase.
In no way, shape, or form is this a tax increase.
Absolutely.
So let me go to Rose's point. Here's how we hit these numbers of $13 billion. We don't fully backfill districts that have had major appreciation. So if you live in an area and your property values went up 40%, yes, we go to the county, we go to the library district and say, you know what, do you really deserve 40% over 2 years? People's incomes went up 10, 12%. We give it, it's a haircut. They still get 35%, 34%. It depends on the formula. They get part of that windfall, just not the whole thing. The rest of the windfall will go back to the homeowners under HH and reduce the property tax rate.
We're going to get into local government in a minute. First, let's talk about the senior property homestead exemption. It's a benefit for seniors. The senior property tax exemption that exists right now allows someone 65 or older to get a tax-free discount on some of their home's value if they've lived in that home for at least 10 years. Proposition HH will allow the senior to take the discount with them to a new home. Representative Pugliese, do you support the idea of allowing a senior to take this tax benefit to a new home?
I absolutely do. And Republicans have been bringing that bill forward for years, and the legislature has never allowed it to go forward, has never seen the light of day. So it goes back to, we could have lowered property taxes with a simple bill, 2-pager. We could have also given mobility, portability to seniors, but the legislature chose not to do that and put that as an additional incentive in HH, take your TABOR refund.
So then how do you pay for it to allow more seniors to take it for longer? How do you pay for that without the TABOR refund money that the governor wants to use?
I think we have money within our within the revenues that the state currently has. I think that we don't have a revenue problem at the state. We have the highest budget in Colorado's history. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a prioritization problem. And we can find the money for the senior homestead exemption if we so choose.
Governor, if you think seniors should be able to take this with them to new homes, just like Representative Pugliese said had been offered by Republicans, why not ask lawmakers to send you a bill that does just that does not need voter approval?
Well, of course, I'm always for that, right? So again, I'm always for cuts in property tax rates, cuts in income tax, making the senior homestead exemption portable. The governor is not the legislature, right? So I can say I want these things, but at the end of the day, I trust the people to deliver in passing HH, major property tax cuts, as well as making the senior homestead exemption portable.
I want to get back to this special session conversation that you had in your question, Representative Pugliese. If there was a special session called, what is a fix that you think Republicans have that the Democrats would adopt as the majority that pretty much don't have to listen to anything that the Republicans bring forward?
I think the first answer is to bring local governments to the table. Again, the state gets $0 from property tax. It is these local governments, including school districts, that need to be at that table. And I think finding a solution is actually not as hard as the governor makes it out to be. I think that there are definitely solutions out there. Before I was even sworn into office, Representative Frizzell, Senator Pelton, and I brought forward property tax bills because we knew this was going to be a problem. And we had some ideas, but it included bringing the right people to the table. And that's what needs to happen in a special session. We need to bring the right people to the table and have those conversations because the state is the only winner under Proposition HH. It is not local governments. And that's why you're seeing State Association of Counties, municipalities, small businesses, the Colorado Realtors, the Special District Association, they all oppose Proposition HH because they know this is a bad deal, not just for Coloradans, but also for their district.
One moment, Dr. Laffer. State Republicans have called a news conference for Wednesday to announce their property tax solution should Prop HH fail. What are some of the details of this, and have you had one conversation with a Democrat at the legislature that would put this forward should Prop HH fail?
I think that there's definitely some Democrats interested if the governor would give his blessing. I think if he calls a special session and says, I want the right people at this table so that we can really, truly solve the property tax crisis, it will happen. Because as much as he says the governor is not involved with the legislature, I saw a lot more happening on the first floor, which is where the governor's office is, than on the second floor, which is where the legislature is.
What are some of the details of this news conference where you have property tax ideas?
We are going to be bringing all the right stakeholders to the table and partners so that we can have a broader conversation. But it involves having a special session and bringing the right people to the table.
So it's a committee.
It's a conversation that we weren't privy to beforehand.
I just don't know. I mean, talking to locals, the locals don't want to give up a dime of the windfall from even the areas that went up 50%. You think they're going to come in and say, go ahead and give us a haircut? I mean, I would celebrate if they do, but I'm not holding my breath, Rose. Local governments, of course you mentioned, many of them oppose that. They do fine under this. Instead of getting the 40% increase, they get 32, they get 35, because the homeowners are the ones who need the relief. The districts do fine. They're still getting inflation plus. But yes, we're not backfilling every penny because we want to pass those savings along to homeowners.
You've mentioned the local governments, which would not be made whole. All of the local governments would not be made whole at the end of this should Prop HH pass. The money that they would have had Prop HH failed, local governments wouldn't get it all. School districts would, special districts, fire, library, all that won't. Who is the state to say how much a local government should or should not get? Why shouldn't that be a local decision, Governor?
Well, that's what truth in taxation does as a cap. So rather than have a statewide hard tap or what we had under Gallagher, which was a statewide formula that forced it on them, we do return the authority to the local level. There has been this gap where we need to provide this relief no matter where you live. And by the way, there are areas of our state where the property tax and the values maybe only went up 5 or 8%, right? In some areas of our state, they actually do get fully backfilled. But once they hit 20% over 2 years, yes, the backfill goes away. They get part of that windfall, but homeowners in those areas need the rest of that money so seniors can afford to live in their home and people aren't priced out of where they live.
Oh, can I just reiterate something that I feel like it's missed in this conversation? Local governments care as much as the governor does about the people of Colorado who are struggling under high inflation, taxes, and fees that continue to go up on them. And so to say that local governments won't take a haircut, won't come to the table is absolutely false. And I could say that as a former county commissioner who actually talks to county commissioners from across the state. There are solutions at the table. We just were never brought into the conversations, and we would like to be. And so to say that there is no consensus to be found, there is no conversation to be had, is really disingenuous to the fact of the work that the people are doing, because this is not a Republican issue, it is not a Democrat issue, it is a bipartisan issue that we could all come together and find consensus around.
Dr. Laffer, you were just...
If I can, I mean, local governments could, if they wanted to, not tax the additional increase in prices if they wanted to. Local governments have control of property tax rates. They could do it, but they're gorging at the mouth at the homeowner's expense. That's what's happening. This will give some relief to that so that homeowners don't have the whole hit. Now, when I look across the country, I see Colorado as having a very low property tax system. It's really good. It's really great. This new 34% increase is way too much. I do agree with that. But it is that tax system that has created Colorado's prosperity. Colorado stands out amongst the states in this nation of being really prosperous because of their property taxes being low, not in spite of it. Controlling property tax rate growth is key to maintaining prosperity in Colorado. And if you don't do it, you'll be West Virginia, you'll be Connecticut in no time at all. Believe me when I tell you, that's what I study, that's what I work. You've got a great system. Don't louse it up. The governor's completely right. We should lower those property tax rates to offset, in part, the huge appreciation in the value of homes, and especially for renters and people who can't afford their houses. Those people will be benefited majorly by the tax rate reduction. And then we should go back to these two's idea of let's do a legislative session and let's carry this momentum forward after we get the property tax rate cut here. It's the right thing to do.
Mr. Fields, you went on both sides. You're shaking your head no, you're shaking your head yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with some of what he said and not others.
Well,
I think,
there you go.
You know, the first thing, though, is that half of your property tax bill goes to education, and they cannot lower that amount, right? So you're going to be paying more.
But they're going to increase it hugely with the 34% increase.
The truth in taxation part is a fake cap because it doesn't apply to education, and it gives the power to local politicians instead of the people, right? This is the whole point of Tabor that people like, is that people get to vote on tax increases or not. So actually, this is one of the most...
They still do if HH passes, by the way.
This is one of the most unpopular parts of HH, is to say we're going to take this out of the hands of the people and put it in the hands of politicians.
Well, I think it's the the opposite. It takes it out of the hands of
Well,
politicians.
I've seen the
and
polling,
puts it
so
to
I know it's
people
not
with
the
HH.
opposite, but-
No, that's because you're trying to poll to figure out an artificial message against it. This is the power of the people to cut your own property tax by passing it.
And by pass it, they will cut their property tax rate.
That's right.
Property taxes will go up because of the prosperity of Colorado. And every local government, if it could and if it wanted to, give it back to the residents there, lower their property tax rate so their tax bill doesn't go up. That's perfectly legal here, and they can do it, but they're not going to do it without something like this.
Colorado Mountain College did it. Yay. Thank you, Colorado Mountain
There you
College.
go.
They cut their mills.
Mr. Fields, you brought up school districts.
1 out of 4,000.
They'll be held harmless by any reduction in property tax revenue, and the state will use the Tabor money to make sure that school districts get the money they were supposed to if Prop HH did not exist. Prop HH would direct more money to Colorado schools. Do you think Colorado schools have enough money right now, Mr. Fields?
Oh, I absolutely think that we should buy down the budget stabilization factor. It's the one thing I'll give credit to the governor for is every year we have put more money into education.
Only one thing, Michael?
Tonight, only one thing. I think the key, and I think about this, I have 3 of my kids that go to district schools in Douglas County. I'm a former teacher. I taught 4th and 6th grade. I think teachers need to get paid more. They don't get paid enough. You look at what they have to deal with day in and day out. More money should be getting into the classroom. The problem in Colorado is that only 54% of the money that is spent on education gets into the classroom. That's according to the Biden administration's Department of Education. The states around us do a lot better job. So I think the key is, yes, we want more money into education, but we need to use the money that we have much better to put it to teacher pay, and that's not happening in Colorado.
Isn't what you just said a local school district board
Yeah.
debate and not a debate with the state and the governor?
Well, I'm talking about increasing revenue. I think, when people look at taxation in general, right, and they say, do we want more taxes? Or, to answer that question of, do we want to give up our Tabor refunds to go to education? The response and why it went down in 2019 when Prop CC was on the ballot was because they don't think money's getting into the classroom, not getting to teachers, right? So we have to reform that system. It is a conversation both between the state and the local governments. But I think, I agree with Coloradans. Teachers need to get paid more. We need more money into the classroom.
Governor, I let this lapse when we were talking about the special session. Are you going to call a special session if Prop HH fails?
Well, again, I mean, they come back in January, whether it's November, whether it's January. I'm hopeful we'll be in the position where Prop HH passes, and maybe we can hopefully do additional tax relief on top of it. If Prop HH somehow doesn't pass, there's no, again, I'm a wild-eyed optimist. There's no way a Republican or Democratic legislature is going to do $13 billion in property tax rate relief.
Let me ask it another way. What's your backup plan?
Well, I'm for, again, whatever they can produce. And I mean, I hope you come along with 20 Democrats supporting your thing. But if you don't, what good is it?
That's
What are you,
not
19
leadership.
Republicans or something?
That's absolutely not leadership. When
the
Bill Owens
leadership is
wanted
to
to
get
cut
them passed.
taxes, he went and said, legislature, cut taxes.
I'm
and they did it. Why
leading
can't
by
you tell your
encouraging the
party,
people
tell
to
your
vote for
party-
property tax
Tell
cuts.
your
That's
party,
leadership
HH
right
fails,
here.
get back to work, cut the rate, don't touch Tabor. That's all you have to do, and they'll follow.
Yeah, this is a $13 billion tax cut. Can they cut a couple $100 million in taxes? They did that before. I hope they do again. But I want this $13 billion property tax cut. I want the cap going forward with truth in taxation so it doesn't go up again. And we're not back here in 2 years saying we need to do another rate more.
And I wanted to be sure that I had enough questions, but I added questions just in case we weren't getting enough to the end. That was my backup plan. Do you really not have a backup plan for if Prop HH fails?
Whatever can pass. I'm for whatever can pass the legislature, but it's better to build off of HH and do more relief than to be back to square one and try to come up with a few hundred million.
I've never heard a governor who
Look,
had his party was in control of the legislature,
Right.
and he said
It's
whatever
not,
can
this
pass.
isn't partisan.
Whatever
It's
they
not
can come
partisan.
up with.
The
No,
legislature
the governor has to have a plan.
The
He has
legislature
to
can
go
do a
in.
Band-Aid. Only the
This is
people
his
can
party
solve
who
this by
controls the
passing
legislature.
HH. The legislature can do a Band-Aid, whether it's
Never
November or
heard of that,
January.
ever, for a
I'm
governor
it.
to say,
The
"Whatever
bigger-
gets to me."
The bigger the Band-Aid, the
And
better.
I've never heard a Republican say it shouldn't be done on the ballot. I've never heard a Republican be against the Democratic vote on lowering tax
If they
rates.
want to send a
Legislatures-
property tax cut without Tabor refunds, it'll pass 90 to 10.
But the
90 to
income
10.
tax cut, Proposition 121, cut the Tabor
This
refunds
is
by
a tax
$150 per
increase.
person.
This is a tax
No,
increase.
this is a $13
I've
billion
never heard a
tax
governor
cut.
say whatever gets to my desk when his party runs state government right now.
Mr. Fields, we know who is backing Prop HH. It's teacher unions and liberal groups. Will you tell voters who fund your dark money group that opposes Prop HH?
Sure. So, we have a fundamental principle in America that we have freedom of speech. And we have the ability to have nonprofits engage in political activity. And it happens on both sides. And I think the key for not releasing donor information is the retribution, right? That people go after businesses and individuals in order to do it. And so I will say this, that the money that is being spent against Prop HH is coming from Colorado. If you look at the other side, most of it's coming from out of state.
A lot of what you've talked about today is about transparency. How is it transparent to not say, here's who wants to make you vote no?
We can absolutely have a conversation about disclosure with nonprofits, but there is a fundamental American principle that freedom of speech, that you don't have to disclose donors because of that retribution. That is a much broader conversation.
Governor Polis, if you get your way and Prop HH passes, who are the losers? Who misses out?
Well, I think other states,
Renters.
because it makes Colorado more competitive. You know, everybody in Colorado wins if Prop HH passes.
Who
by
in
reducing the
Colorado
property
that
tax
is a
rate.
taxpayer or a rent, like we can classify based on income level, based on if I rent or buy, like someone's not winning in this. There's winners and losers in everything.
Here's why, here's why everybody wins. The economy does better because this is a pro-growth tax cut. When you leave $1 billion in the economy instead of taxing it out, what you do is you allow that $1 billion to have a cumulative growth. It's like somebody who, because of the property tax cut, can add to their home and employ construction workers. It's a tax cut for small businesses who can hire more and pay more. So we all do better if we cut property taxes in Colorado.
We did it. We got it to the end here. I was worried with the questions here. You can see the mess I've made. I'm glad that we engaged in this debate and talked back and forth. There's going to be a minute closing now. And based on the coin toss at the beginning, Representative Pugliese, you will have the closing for the no side.
Thank you, Marshall. I want to answer your question. Who are the losers under Proposition HH? The first are the property tax owners, because their taxes are going up. Next is the seniors, because they could have gotten this portability without giving up their taper refunds. Then it's the renters. They also paid $0 in property tax and will be losing their taper refunds. It's the single moms like me who are struggling to make ends meet, and the people of Colorado who really, truly want property tax relief that they are not getting. And it's local governments who have to provide the essential services, including transportation and public safety. They are losing under this. And it's not our kids. I have 2 kids in public school. The state had the money to fully fund education, which they are constitutionally required to do. They chose not to. Instead, they gave you no property tax relief, and they're going to take your taper refunds in the interim. And so none of these people are winning under Proposition HH. So I'm asking the people of Colorado, please, first, vote no on HH, and second, demand that the governor be a leader and call a special session, bringing the right people to the table and all of the voices.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Pugliese. And the no on HH side, Dr. Laffer. From the yes on HH side, you have the final word.
Yeah, property tax rate reductions will help everyone in this state across the board. Yes, you do have appreciation in home values, which does lead to higher property taxes. That's true because you're so successful, you're attracting people from everywhere, property values are rising. This is not a problem, this is a solution there, but Prop HH does reduce property tax rates, and it especially helps renters and homeowners. And virtually everyone in this state is a renter or a homeowner. And if I can give a last quote of John F. Kennedy, "A rising tide, it raises all boats." It's not winners and losers here. This is a general win for the state of Colorado, and I wholly endorse you people doing this for the benefit of Colorado. It's just the right thing to do.
I think the end was B, Colorado or Tennessee, but not West Virginia or Connecticut.
You got it. That's very true.
I'm surprised that we could condense it all into an hour. I know I had to do a 2-minute story at the beginning of this to really just succinctly tell voters what simple yes means, what simple no means. Mr. Fields, you mentioned it's a 48-page bill. It's 12 pages in the Blue Book, and this is supposed to be the thing that simplifies it. I will remember that universal preschool is like a 400-page bill. So in relative terms, at least it is like 1/10 of that. I appreciate you taking the time out for this. It's rare that we do one of these for an issue. It's usually candidate-based, but this is so impactful for so many people. I appreciate the conversation we've all had. Thanks for joining us for this debate in partnership with the Denver Gazette. The entirety of the debate here can be watched online, along with our in-depth coverage of Proposition HH and the other items on your November ballot, which Proposition II is on everybody's ballot also. That's on 9news.com and the 9 News YouTube channel. For the 4 of our guests here and everyone behind the scenes, thanks for watching this Prop HH debate.